What's unique about, I think, the Omai project is obviously it has great potential, and you'll see that in the presentation to demonstrate quite a bit of gold ounces here. But in addition to that, it's really in some respects a combination of a brownfield project and a greenfield project, and you'll see that through the presentation. While at the same time having some good infrastructure in place from prior operations. So for those of you that are fairly new to the story, this used to be a Cambior / Iron Gold project discovered in the early 90s and operated for about 13 years. And really was a high grade open pit. It mined 3.7, 3.8 million ounces at 1.6 grams in an open pit. And there's just not a lot of open pits at those grades, at those ounces anywhere. And I think you'll understand a little bit further as we go through the presentation that really this was shut down not because of the lack of ounces, but really the gold price environment that we were in at the time and some of the financial issues that Cambior was going through. That decision was made to shut this operation down. But the Guyana Shield in general, I really like this chart because it really tries to show, all the world-class assets that have already been discovered in the Guyana Shield. Obviously, a significant amount on the African side, and I think really on the Latin American side, the exploration is really just starting. Obviously, you got some really big projects, world-class projects at Rosabelle and Marion. Our vice president of exploration was the gentleman that discovered Marion. So we know this area extraordinarily well. We understand the geology here. We understand the potential here. But Omai has not yet made that 5 million ounce level. I think there's real opportunity here for us to get to that level and bigger. And hopefully you'll start to see that based on what we're starting to see from our drill bit. This is what Omai looked like when it was in operation with Cambior and Iron Gold, and when they made the decision to shut it down. But really, for everyone that's not familiar, during the timeline, in the early part of 2000, gold prices were quite low. We're exiting the 200 and we're in the $300 gold price range. And really, at the time, Cambior had some financial issues around their hedge book. So a lot of money was never really spent here on exploration. And that's really the opportunity for the current shareholders because they focus fully on, mining out the known resources that they had at Wenot and Fennel. They didn't explore for further resources on strike at Wenot, additional targets, independent of Wenot and Fennel. And for that matter, really, they didn't continue to drill below the Wenot pit, and they did drill below the Fennel pit, which I'll show you. But they made a decision at the time because they had the Rosabelle discovery in Suriname right next door, that the better solution for them, and you can't fault them because I think, looking back, they probably made the right decision to move the mill from here to Suriname to advance the production of Suriname and get that in production. So it's obviously a world-class mine. So they were actually able to get production quite quickly at Suriname. But as I said, I think this is the opportunity for our current shareholders to really try and demonstrate value with what was left behind here at Omai. This I think says a lot in terms of what happened at Omai relative to the other major discoveries, and in many respects, this is probably one of the most important slides you'll see in this presentation. And you look at Rosabelle, you look at Marion, you look at the Aurora mine, which is Guyana Goldfields, obviously now it's Zijin, and you look at the Goldex mining now, which is Grand Colombian. A significant amount of drilling has occurred at these assets, and it's really just a fraction has occurred at Omai. Look at 87,000. When we're done, we'll be just over 90,000 ounces after we finish drilling the Wenot pit. But still, it's a small fraction of what you're seeing at Rosabelle and Marion. So, as we continue to drill this, I think we'll be able to demonstrate a lot of ounces, and hopefully we'll be able to show the market that the 1.5 million ounces assumed in the Laurentian is very conservative, and we'll be able to continue to grow significant value for our shareholders here at Omai. And this is just a Google Maps of the area. And what's really important here is it just shows the potential on strike, that there is quite a bit of mineralization on strike at Wenot to the east and to the west. At Fennel, the western side of Fennel is quite interesting, actually. It's something we're going to start looking at, as well as Broccoli Hill to the east. And these are some exploration targets. And the recent drilling at Wenot and what we're starting to see from the geophysics to the south of Wenot is quite interesting as well, because we see some additional targets there. And I'll walk you through some of those as well. But what I want to start by the end of this presentation is really demonstrate that there's a lot of ounces left below the pits, on strike to the pits, and there's a lot of targets that need to be really explored here to show that this has potential world-class district. And this is the geophysics. So we recently ran the geophysics, and we got some great geologists and statisticians working on this with us. And really what we understand now that I don't think was really well understood at the time when this was in operation is when you look at Rosabelle, it's a combination of bigger and smaller pits. There's gold in the sediments, and here, exploration in the sediments never occurred. Clearly, we have now shown that there is potential for gold in the sediments at Wenot, which I'll show you shortly as well. But there's a number of targets here. And when you look at Fennel, it gives off a magnetic low. Wenot gives off a magnetic high, just because of the different host rocks. And we've identified a number of targets here that are worthy of additional exploration. Whether 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these targets pan out, I don't know. The drill bit will tell us the final story here. But this is not just a two-trick pony with Fennel and Wenot. I think there's real potential here for new discoveries. And I say this all the time, once we can demonstrate next a new discovery, I think the valuation here continues to go up because a lot of the blue sky will start getting valued into the company, which it currently is not. So these are the two pits that were previously mined. Fennel is to the right and Wenot is to the left. What really the two things that stand out here is the source of the mineralization is from the same intrusive source. And we believe you're going to find more of these style pits in and around the initial Wenot and Fennel discoveries. But there is mineralization between the two pits. And just as importantly, you can really see on the left at Wenot how shallow the drilling was. There was no reason for them to stop mining at the 190-meter depth at Wenot. It was just a matter of the low gold price environment that I mentioned earlier, and the decision by IAMGOLD to move the mill to Suriname so that they can accelerate the production at Suriname. Now, they had to make a decision to move the mill one way or the other because the western extension of Wenot, where they did see mineralization, the mill was sitting there. And, internal non-43-101 resources estimates at the time was about 300,000 ounces sitting below the mill. So one way or the other, they had to move the mill. But as I said, the decision was made to move it to Suriname, which I still think was the right decision at the time. This is Wenot, and you can see the pit. And a couple of things here to really point out is, at the top of the page, you see the mill site. So they, if they needed to continue mining this to the west, the mill had to be moved. To the left, where you see the sediments, that is really important because they didn't really understand at the time the sediments and the potential of gold being hosted in the sediments here. And the drilling that we've now done, plus some of the old assays or holes that we've now reassayed, clearly show there is mineralization in the sediments. So, there is an opportunity here to not only expand this on strike into depth, but also widen the pit. And if we can show, significant mineralization in the sediments, even as we move further south with new targets, I think you got a chance here to widen the pit and not only deepen the pit, which will be quite exciting from a production perspective. This is showing a couple of key points here. The area in the bottom is the drill holes that we're currently drilling. It's about a 5,000-meter drill program, about 10 holes. We've had some difficulty for various reasons drilling from the south. We did lose about 4 or 5 holes, but I think we got things back on track. It's still the first drill program we've done at site for quite some time. We're training up the drillers just like everyone else. So everyone's been fairly new to this, but I think the drillers now got things under control, that things have been moving a little bit more smoothly now. But really the purpose of this drill program is to demonstrate the resource potential below the Wenot pit. And then we'll start to then demonstrate the potential on strike. So we're really looking at this as a phased approach, really to try and demonstrate significant value for our shareholders. And you can see at the top of the page the amount of ore grade hits that are on strike to the east as well as to the west. And maybe this mineralization was pinching a little bit on the west, and it opens up a little bit further west, which is basically is what you're seeing at the top of the page. And we'll hopefully start to demonstrate that as we continue to drill Wenot near surface and below the pit. So when you sort of look at this as at a little bit of a macro level, the area in red is our prospecting license that we currently have. The Wenot pit, you can see the Fennel pit, which are currently full of water because this was shut down in the early part of 2000, as I mentioned previously. The water is clean. We really think if we ever want to dewater these pits, and I'm not sure we would dewater both pits, but if we made that decision to dewater the pits, we think we can just discharge it into the river to the south. Maybe we need a lime filter or a sand filter, but the water is actually very clean because it's all rainwater. These are not acid generating rocks. And the area to the east of Fennel, Broccoli Hill, which is a prime exploration target for us. And you can see to the west and to the east of Wenot, again, some interesting structure there that, we think there's potential for additional mineralization. This thing just needs to be drilled. And again, the environment that when this was shut down, the financial issues Canberra was having with their hedge book, exploration here just did not occur. And in fact, we have two people working with us or as consultants, Linda Hesterman, who was the exploration manager for Canberra and Gold, and Michael Justin as well, who was manager, and they confirmed to us they just did not have the budget here to look for additional mineralization. And I think that's really the opportunity here is to demonstrate the value of Fennel and Wenot, but at the same time now start demonstrating the value of potentially Broccoli Hill and some of these other targets we're starting to identify on our land package. And you can see, it's a little bit slow changing. Again, you can sort of see where we're drilling at Wenot relative to the geophysics, and this is just a different image, a little bit more detail of a slice. But at Wenot and Fennel, that mag low that you see at Broccoli Hill is very intriguing to us because it gives off a very similar geophysical signature. There is quite a bit of surface showing. We've got to do more work, obviously. I think we're going to have to open it up, do some trenching here to really see and expose some of the veins that are potentially sitting at Broccoli Hill. I mean, that's the hope, obviously. But you can see, the geophysics here is quite intriguing. And, the key learnings now that wasn't available back then when Omai was discovered by Cambio, as I said earlier in the presentation, Roosevelt, Marion are a multitude of bigger and smaller pits, open pit, underground. And that wasn't well understood in the 90s and the early part of 2000, but now it is understood. So we think there's significant potential here for additional discoveries in addition to Fennel and Wenot. A similar image, just a different slice, but again, Broccoli Hill, you'll see that a little bit later to us is a prime exploration target. So that's going to be an area of focus to us. And the area to the west of Fennel, actually, there's another mag low there that you can see is quite interesting as well, that's worthy of additional exploration. So, fingers crossed as we continue to advance this now to the next phase of exploration, which is a combination of demonstrating resources below Fennel, Wenot. The next phase as well, we'll start incorporating new targets. And that's, I think, when the story gets extremely exciting is when we start to demonstrate the blue sky potential in this area. In terms of Wenot, this is really important when you're starting to envision the potential ounces that are sitting here. Obviously, we don't have 43101 resources. We got a ton of historical data here. We have some core at Wenot, but in order to do a 43101 compliant resource, we have to drill our own holes. And, the 5,000 meter drill program had a dual purpose, was to show the depth potential at Wenot, as well as, use those holes to start going into resource statements, which we're targeting by the end of the year. And, some of the drill holes here, this would have been from some assaying of some previously unassayed holes. And you can clearly see here now, the same grades and widths that would have been experienced in the top part that was mined to 190 meter depth at Wenot, we're seeing below the pit. And that is quite important, right, for us because, there's significant grade and potential here. And that structure, which is the shear structure, we're seeing that continue to, someone told me it's likely to continue to the bowels of the earth. We may hit the non-mineralized dike that they encountered at Fennel, but that was post-mineral. So once we get below the dike, we would continue to see the mineralization occur at Wenot. So this is pretty exciting for us because, there's no reason why we can't extend the Wenot pit to depth. And then in the sediments, this is what's really important. When you look at Wenot and the potential mineralization in the sediments, and you can sort of see the pit outline there at the top, they didn't really explore in the sediments, and some of the drill holes now that have been re-assayed and that we're drilling as well are in the sediments, and you can see the sediments are mineralized, and you can see these perfectly vertical structures that are occurring right to depth. So you run the math, you had about 1.7 million ounces mined at Wenot to about 190 meter depth, 1.6 grams. And the drill holes that we're seeing in the main shear zone are similar grades and widths that would have been mined up above. So there is real potential here. If you extend this to 350 meter depth, you could add quite a bit of ounces here. If we can show continued mineralization in the sediments, then I think you get a benefit of a lower strip ratio and hopefully more ounces than would have been mined in the top part. So that's going to be part of our goal here, is to really understand what's happening below the Wenot pit. And you can see some of those grades, right? 14 meters of 9 grams. And then we've got, as we started to drill, we're starting to see very similar things. So we issued some drill results, our first 2 holes at the end of May, and the end of April rather. And we're getting very similar grades and widths. Again, you get 16 meters of 9 gram type material. We're getting gold in the sediments. So we're really confident now that the mineralization at Wenot is going to extend to depth, which will allow us potentially to mine this as an open pit. And then we've got to start to understand, what can we do with the ounces that are sitting at Fennel. Again, none of these are 43101 compliant, but at Fennel, there is quite a bit of drill holes that have occurred historically. And now with what we're drilling at Wenot, as I said, we're confident we're starting to see some real potential here to extend the open pit to depth. And then getting to Fennel, this is quite important as well. So you basically had at the deepest part, let's say around 250 meters, Fennel was mined at the deepest part of the pit, so still fairly shallow. And when they were mining Fennel, they hit a non-mineralized dike. It was post-mineral, and they decided to drill some additional holes. And basically the dike could be at the thickest part up to 150 meters. So they really couldn't continue to mine this as an open pit at the time with the low gold price environment, but they did drill 46 holes here, and this would have been iron gold. And, they did get some great intervals, 41 intervals of 31 grams or greater over a meter or greater. And that's really important because, as you look at some of the historical holes here, highlight a couple of them, and you see some great holes by other mining companies and the valuation of those other mining companies. But you look at, the 101 meters of 35 grams. Now, obviously, there was a 1,000 gram plus hit there because on the eastern part of this, you can actually get quite a bit of VG, and you can see that in the image here, which is quite exciting because if you look at this, IAMGOLD estimated, this is again a historical resource, not 43101 compliant, but they estimated between 1.5 to 2.5 million ounces here of 2.5 to 4 grams. Depending on whether they cap the grade. Now, you also got to cap the grade here. But what was interesting when they did their internal resource is they assumed this was an extension of the open pit. And reality is, I think the way you would look at this is as an underground mine, and maybe it's a combination of bulk mining with more selective mining or all bulk mining. That needs to be determined. But you can see a lot of gaps here that probably would not have been included in their historical resource, that if we continue to drill Fennel, that we could continue to grow those resources, because there is a lot of gaps there that with some great holes around here, even towards the bottom, the deepest hole, which was around 900 meter depth, which would only be 500 meters below the dike, let's say. You got 12 meters at 24 grams. So we know there's real high grade zones here. And we know there's also some really good grades with very wide widths here as well. So, Fennel to us is very exciting because I think there's quite a bit of ounces here that can demonstrate a lot of value for shareholders going forward. And you can see another section here at Fennel that I think, again, just shows a lot of the gaps in the drilling at Fennel that are worthy of drilling. Basically what you probably have here, some sort of cylindrical pipe that's obviously quite wide and has mined a lot of ounces. But this thing, again, is going to go down to the bowels of the earth. It's just a matter of us drilling and really trying to understand what's the most economic method to mine Fennel. Maybe it is an extension of the open pit if you include Wenot. If there's mineralization at Broccoli Hill, maybe you start thinking of this as a big super pit, or maybe a more simplified method is you mine Wenot open pit, and then you mine both of these underground via the same decline. and you only dewater one of these pits. So there's lots of options, lots of value and opportunities here for management and the smart engineers to consider. But the main highlight here is it's really obvious, anyone looking at this, that there's a lot of gold now below Wenot. There's a lot of gold now below Fennel. And if we can show gold in additional discoveries in and around these initial pits, I think the market's really going to start to understand that this could start to work up to, the Marians of the world and the Rosabels of the world. That's our ultimate goal here, is to try and demonstrate that we've got another Marian and Rosabel type deposit. Broccoli Hill, I mentioned and alluded to that a little bit earlier. It is one of our prime exploration targets, in addition to the west end of Fennel. But with Broccoli Hill, more work needs to be done here. But there is I'll call it almost like a 500 meter by 500 meter golden soil anomaly. Really what we need to do now is start opening this up, maybe get some trenching in here so we can expose some of the fresh rocks. But there's a lot of old port knockers or alluvial workings here. There is some auger drilling that we had hit almost, or basically historically would have hit 12 grams. So we know there's gold here. It's just a matter of now trying to understand what's happening at Broccoli Hill. We got the geophysical anomaly. We're seeing some gold at surface. So this is going to be a prime exploration target for us. And I think the next stage for us, once we finish the drilling at Wenot, is to start thinking about opening up Broccoli Hill and some of the other exploration targets for additional surface work, then eventually some trenching to see if we can expose some of these veins so we can start to understand the orientation and start getting some drills in here to see if we can find another Fennel or Wenot in and around our prospecting license. So in terms of our key catalysts here, and obviously we'll open this up for questions because I always like answering questions. We did our RTO listing. This is still a fairly young company. I want to remind everyone, we've only been out trading for 6 months. We've only when we started trading, we were in the middle of COVID crisis, lockdowns in Suriname and Guyana, the United States, Canada. But at the same time, we've got a great team in country, great technical team that we've been able to advance this project. So we were able to recover 6,000 meters of core, get that reassayed. That really shows that Wenot extends to depth. We commenced a drill program in the middle of the COVID crisis. We've now completed. If you're excluding some of the lost holes, I think we're up to 7 or 8 completed holes. So we're really progressing the project, and you'll start to see those assays coming out in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And in addition to that, once we complete our drill program, we'll be starting to think about a 43101 resource for Wenot that we'll try and target that out by the end of the year. That's one of our key goals. But at the same time, after we complete our drill program, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we're going to start now working on some of the other targets, so we could really start to understand better with boots on the ground, trenching, assaying, open up some of the areas and see what the potential gold is in and around these two pits. So I see lots of potential here for more than what we're seeing at Wenot and Fennel. I'm not going to go through all the management team and the board, and obviously anyone here can read the bios, but I really want to point out that we do have a tier 1 board here that really will help advance this project. Renaud Adams, who's our chairman, one of the key things to really point out about Renaud that many of you may not know is he was responsible for operating Rosabel in Suriname. So that's why Renaud was a key addition to our team here, because he knows how to operate in this area and could give the management and obviously the rest of the board members some great advice on how to operate in this area. And then also we got a strong board, everyone from Nadine to Lane to Lon to Dennis. So I think we've got a tier 1 board here that should really help us advance this project to create value for our shareholders. And then in terms of the technical team, I've already alluded to Michael, Justin, and Linda, and Dennis, and you can see the rest of the technical team here, from Perry to Jason and Harvey as our CFO. From a corporate perspective, I think we've now got the makings of a strong team that could really move this project forward. The first 6 months, as any new company, we had to do a little bit of work to make sure the company was well positioned to capitalize on the potential we see in Guyana. We've done that. It was a lot of work for the management team to get us to this position, but now I think we're now set up to really start capitalizing on what Guyana can offer to our shareholders. In terms of the capital structure, this is where we're currently sitting at, but also I want to point out that we've now announced first a $3 million financing, which was then upsized to 5 million, which was very well oversubscribed, even at 5 million. I think we could have kept going, but we felt 5 million was the right amount if we were going to upsize it, because it sort of gives us the balance of capital to advance the project, while at the same time, trying to minimize, remaining dilution, because we have some catalysts coming out, which will also be some drill results and exploration in and around the Fennel and whatnot, initial discoveries that I think should create some shareholder value for ourselves and all the shareholders, and hopefully new shareholders coming into the story. So why don't I open this up for questions? Hopefully this is a good overview, but questions are always welcome.
Mario, thank you very much. A really terrific tour inside the company, look at some of the developments and a look ahead. I appreciate that. The VID conference does give our viewers a great opportunity to ask some probing questions and learn more about the company from various parts of the world. And I will say we've had some remarkable keynote speakers through the course of the last few days, Mario. And of course, we had Pierre Lassonde start us off yesterday. And one of the most notable comments he made was around his criteria for investing. And the first was management. He likes to invest in people. Second, of course, is the quality of asset. And the third, the jurisdiction. And I think you nicely covered the first two. We saw a great tour of the board and the team just towards the end. You've talked about the assets. I would like to come back around to the jurisdiction to give our viewers a better sense of where you're at. But let's start off with a key question here about what can investors expect to see this year regarding your ongoing drill program?
So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we released our first 2 holes from our 5,000 meter drill program, which would have been approximately 10 holes completed. So basically what we're going to see over the next 4 to 6 weeks is another tranche of holes coming out from our drill program, and then probably the final release of holes after that. So I'm hopeful that those holes will continue to show that Wenot extends to depth, which I think will then formalize people's views, including ourselves, that Wenot could be extended to depth as an open pit. And then, hopefully, as you continue to drill this, maybe this will also provide opportunity for Wenot to be an underground mine. Then after that, we'll start doing some exploration work at in and around Fennel, trying to firm up some of these targets that we see from the geophysics, some of the old workings, some of the work that IAMGOLD and Cambrior have done in the area, but a lot of the drill holes that they would have done would have been very shallow. And I think we have a much better understanding now of what this means relative to what would have been in the 90s, in the early part of 2000. So our program now will be, starting to work up some of the new targets and then hopefully drill some of those new targets, as well as Fennel. I really like Fennel. Obviously, I think the market understands there's at least 1.5 million ounces there based on the work that IAMGOLD has done. Mm-hmm. But, anytime someone can drill 100 meters of 30-gram type material, those are very rare holes. And if you look at some of the drill holes at Fennel, you get the 3,000-gram hits, the 1,000-gram hits, you get some wide hits. It's just extraordinarily drilling. And, I walked through with our technical team at the board. We're just doing some 3D images at Fennel, because we're all trying to understand, what's the best way to approach Fennel from a drill perspective. And, when you look at it in 3D, you can really see some huge gaps from the drilling that IAMGOLD has done, because really they did it from one drill platform, more or less, from the bottom of the pit. Okay. So we really got to try and understand what's the best approach to drill Fennel. Maybe you do some directional drilling. I don't know. I'll leave it up to the technical people to decide. But there's huge gaps in that drilling that I'm hopeful will shore up the resource. Maybe we can get some better grades, and maybe we can grow that resource as we continue to drill Fennel, while at the same time advancing some of these new targets. Because I think it's really important for investors and current shareholders and future shareholders to not only see what we currently have, but what is the potential for more discoveries in and around here. And I think that's going to be, a dual-pronged approach from our perspective. Advance what we know and start to identify what we don't know.
I appreciate that. Very clear. Thank you for that. To go back to the criteria that Pierre shared with us, you talked about the management. You did do a great tour through the team. But to go specifically, your VP of Exploration seems to be a key expert on Guyana, and you recently appointed Elaine Ellingham to the board. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, no, look, Dennis, very seasoned geologist. He spent a lot of time in the Guyana Shield. He is considered, one of the foremost experts in the Shield. Suriname most of the time, He goes up to site. COVID, it's been a little bit more difficult for everyone because of lockdowns between various countries.
Right.
But he's been to site numerous times. He was just recently down to site as well, by the way, because she's going to lead our technical team from a board perspective. So she want to get a handle of what's down there. So, we really know Guyana quite well. And I'll point out again, Dennis Lapointe, when he worked for Alcoa. Which is Dennis is an American, worked for Alcoa, and Alcoa was looking for mines, and Alcoa discovered with Dennis the Marion mine, which is now a 500,000 ounce producer. So we do have someone on our team that discovered a world-class asset, and that's Dennis, and because of that, he's the foremost expert in Guyana, and he teaches at the university in Suriname. So he knows this area really well, and I respect Dennis tremendously, and obviously we got to go with his advice here. And so not only is he, I'll call him an intellectual because he is a PhD, way smarter than I am. But at the same time, he has boots on the ground, right? He does spend time on the ground. He has discovered a world-class asset. So I think he's got all the criteria as an investor is what we're looking for. And really, it's those kind of guys and ladies that we rely on. I'm a spokesperson anyways. I'm just the CEO at the end of the day and help make decisions and guide strategy. But it's really the technical people that create the value for shareholders. And it's you got to make sure you have the strong technical group here to really advance the project. And I think we got one of the best with, led by Dennis Lapointe, as well as Linda Hesterman and Michael Justin, and as well as Ryads and some of the technical team we've been training up at site. Because, we're really focused here to try and train locals here, because really for mines to succeed, you shouldn't be importing expertise from all over the world. It should be, developing the expertise in country. And that's going to be a key focus of mine and the management team and the boards, is to ensure that we really develop the expertise in Guyana. So that as this continues to advance, we got everything we need in country.
Wise business. Thank you for that. Let's talk a bit about the quality of assets. And I want to ask specifically, what is it about the location of Omai on the Guyana Shield that gets you most excited?
Well, it's the Guyana Shield, and it's already mined 3.8 million ounces. I can't say much more than that. I think it's an obvious project. There's just not many companies or any deposit that's been able to mine 3.8 million ounces, open pit at 1.6 grams. And hopefully I've showed investors here that the drill holes below the pits, there's a lot of gold still left behind.
A lot to go.
So, it was an operation in a much lower gold price environment, much more difficult environment back then to operate in, much lower knowledge because, things were quite new in the Guyana Shield at the time on the Latin American side. This was the largest gold mine at the time, pure gold mine, mind you. But a lot's been learned since then. So I really think that we have potential here for another world-class discovery. We're as management, you sort of go after the low-hanging fruit, and which is what we did. We wanted to advance when not. We want to get, some benchmark on ounces so we can start to understand what we have. But as we continue to step out and explore new targets, I think the market, hopefully, everything's going to be dependent on the drill bit, obviously, starts to see that there's a lot more here besides Wenot and Fennel. And again, I'm going to reiterate to everyone, we're a very young company. We've just been trading for 6 months. And we got financing available to us in November, had to get ourselves organized, had to get the drills ready to go, had to start really understanding, get all the data, which we were doing prior to listing, getting all the data compiled, but we didn't have a lot of cash.
Understood.
So we're fairly new. So in 6 months, we've drilled some great holes. I think we're showing that there's a lot of gold left behind, and I'm hopefully in the next 6 months to 3 years, we're going to show that there's a lot of potential here.
I appreciate that. Well, we're going to get into some fine details here. Babes is asking for the last assay results of April of this year. When can you expect results for holes 3 to 5? Did you receive the assays from the lab? Are they misses? Holes 3 to 5 on the north side specifically.
Yeah, so I'm going to reiterate the next 4 holes after the first 2 holes we lost. Again, it's just circumstance of a new drill program and new drillers, etc. But then we had some success on the next few holes. We lost recently another hole. We just short of the target, which is quite frustrating. But again, this is the impact of, again, a fairly new drill program. But assays do take quite a bit of time nowadays, as everyone's quite aware. But I'm pretty confident we should be able to start getting another set of holes to release to the market in the next four to 5 weeks. And I'm not, and a lot of our management team here, we're not one hole wonders, which means, you drill a hole, issue one hole at a time. I think it's really important. We're not all respect to all various companies here. The best projects are able to issue, holes combined, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes, because I think that's the kind of story that we have here, which is this is a real project, real ounces, real potential. So we're going to release them in batches as I think we should. And those are the best companies. You look at Newfound Gold, same thing, right? You just release these things in batches because it really starts to tell the story here that, there's a lot of ounces here.
Lots to go. I appreciate that. Some great fine detail questions from all over the place. Chris is asking, after the latest PP, how much money is in the bank and what are the ongoing monthly GPA expenses and how much is budgeted for exploration for the remainder of this year?
Yep, all great questions. So currently we're sitting at about $1 million in the bank, and that's earmarked to complete the existing 5,000 meter drill program. So post-financing, unfortunately, there is finder's fees we have to pay. So let's say we end up with $4.5 million in the bank. Our G&A is running traditional. We got a really small team here. If you look at the management team, it's very lean. But our G&A costs will be, the 1 to 1.2 million range, which is very typical of any publicly traded company. We're not exorbitant in any stretch of the imagination here.
Okay.
We try and keep. I'm an accountant by trade, right? So. I'm not a big money spender unless there's justification to spend money here. But in terms of the drill program, we're still working that up because I think we want to give our geologists a little bit of time to assess what we got at Wenot. And then, the next stage is to be advancing some of these additional targets. We have been working up some drilling for Fennel. And deciding what we want to do at Fennel because we want to come out with a 43101 resource at Fennel at some point. And even though there's 46 holes drilled at Fennel, we don't have any of the core. In fact, we don't even know where, officially where, where the drill was placed because it was at the bottom of the pit, which is currently underwater.
I see.
So for 43101 purposes, we're going to have to drill some of our own holes. We can't really twin it because, straight twinning of holes, which is sometimes required for 43101. So we're strategically trying to figure out where to place some holes so we can get the effect of twinning, while at the same time, drilling some of these big gaps at Fennel.
Yes.
So we're going through all that program, but we should have enough money in the till for, say, another 5,000 meter drill program if we focus the treasury all on drilling and exploration. Okay,
fair enough. Ray's asking a question here, Mario. What contribution has Goldspot delivered to the project, and are they assisting with the technology?
Yeah, look, Goldspot came in on our initial IPO, and they've done a great job helping us on Fennel. The reason why I'm really confident on Fennel, I don't want to get into too much detail in terms of Fennel, but Goldspot's done a great job for us in really trying to understand Fennel, and also alongside our technical team. But that's why I can tell you with good confidence that I think there's at least 1.5 million ounces at Fennel. We got to put our own holes there as well to confirm it. And I think the grade is going to be higher than the 2.5 grams that IAM Gold put together. And the reason is when they looked at it as an open pit. And I think our internal work is looking at it more as an underground bulk and maybe underground selective mining combination here. So right, okay. I'm really confident it's at Fennel. And yeah, Goldspot has sent in their structural geologist down the site as well. That's, given us some good feedback and some great ideas on where we can look for more of this stuff. So again, I reiterate, we're still a fairly young company, 6 months since being public. Lots of data is flowing in from everywhere. Small team, but now we're going to be financed again, which will allow us to put some more money into the ground here to drive a lot of value for our shareholders. And patience. I mean, this is the nature of the industry. You can't define a world-class asset in 6 months. It just doesn't happen. But really, to your point. You got to look at the asset and the quality of what's around here. So again, 3.8 million ounces mined, similar grades, if not better at Fennel and Wenot in some respects below the pit, particularly because at Wenot we're now seeing in the sediments and lots of targets in and around here. So we know we got the real estate for more discoveries. Yes. And that goes to being in the right place for gold discoveries.
Good to know that. Let's talk a bit about share price if we can for a moment, Mario. Question from Chris here. With so much potential, what do you think is holding back the share price just by comparison to some of your peers?
Actually, funny enough, I think part of the reason is we don't have 43101 resources. And I think it takes the market a little bit more time to grasp their mind around a brownfield project.
Okay.
The simple question is, well, IAMGOLD can be mined here. They couldn't have left any gold behind. Like, who the hell does that, right? So you always, lots of people approach it from a skeptical perspective that there's no way there's a multi-million ounce deposit here, because no way would IAMGOLD and Cambior have left this behind. And as I said, there was a lot of reasons for this to have occurred. The Cambior hedge book issue, where they couldn't continue to explore. The new discovery at Rosabelle, that was Cambior's discovery that IAMGOLD then put into production. Moving the mill there to accelerate the production there, which again, if you look at IAMGOLD's history, I think back, because I was at Lakeshore, the CFO at the time, I'm pretty sure somewhere around that 2008, 2009 timeframe, they hit like $20 a share. So it was a great key project for them. Don't quote me on that, but I'm going from some pretty long recollection of what was happening back then during my Lakeshore days. But they had a great discovery at Rosabelle. It was a key project for them. So they made the right decision without a doubt. I mean, I'm pretty confident of that. But the end result is they left a lot of gold behind, and it's our job to convince people that they did indeed leave a lot of gold behind. And I think that's always the difficulty. And I love brownfield projects. I'm the chairman of Doré Copper. Same thing, right? It's always a struggle to convince people that there's a lot of potential left behind. But once they start to grasp it, then people start to pile in. And I think the key step will be a new discovery, right? Just showing whether it's Broccoli Hill or West Fennell or the southern sediment targets that we have south of Wenot, show that there's more potential here. Then people start to understand that yes, they definitely did leave quite a bit of gold behind.
Oh, fair enough. Well, let's touch base on the underexplored nature, as you mentioned. Can you provide an analogy of the unexplored nature of the Omai project in relation to the number of meters drilled at, say, Rosabelle and Marion?
Yeah, so we've once we complete our 5,000 meter drill program, we'll be just above 90,000 meters drilled. Okay. Rosabelle is approaching 800,000 meters drilled. I think Marion is at 700,000 meters drilled range, 650, 700,000. So again, those are world-class discoveries, and world-class discoveries require a lot of meters. And I always said, in the early days, when just prior to starting to trade, someone asked me the question, how many meters do you think need to be drilled here? The reality is you're going to need to drill at least another 50,000 meters here. You cannot have a world-class discovery with 20,000 meters of drilling. It just doesn't happen. Obviously, you can demonstrate that you got potential for a world-class discovery, but you got to drill a lot of meters to define the resources. And I think this is the kind of project where you're eventually going to drill a lot of meters, because there's a lot of potential below the pits. That's quite obvious, with some great grades. So again, we're not looking at a half a gram or 1 gram underground bulk zone. I mean, you're looking again, hopefully similar grades to what you've seen at Wenot as an open pit extension. Then hopefully with more selective mining, you get higher grade at Wenot, and at Fennell, as I said, IAMGOLD internally came with a grade of between 2.5 to 4 grams. And I definitely think that 2.5 is on the low end, just because the way they were looking at it is an open pit. I think it would be much more selective mining. And we now understand the ore body a little bit better, and the structures a little bit better than they would have at the time as well. So, I'm really confident here that we're going to be drilling a lot of meters here.
Well, it sounds like great potential. And just as we move towards wrap up here, Mario, I want to do a little bit of a look ahead with you. You've talked about the 6-month period momentum, but let's round that up and say over the next 18 months, what's in your vision? What do you see coming?
So my view is again, a two-phased approach. One is to continue demonstrating the existing resources and expand them, obviously, below Wenot, on strike to Wenot, and below Fennell. And as I said, Fennell is going to go down to the bowels of the earth with some great grades. But at the same time now, it's time to start showing some of the potential of the other targets, which will be like Broccoli Hill, West Fennell, some of the targets to the south and on strike of Wenot to the east. So I think over the next 18 months, knock on wood, I'm Italian, so I'm a little bit superstitious. But my view is that hopefully in the next 18 months we could really show the market that this is not just a two pit story. It's going to be a multitude of pits here, and that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone at all, because that's what Marion and Rosebel are.
Mm-hmm.
They're a multitude of pits, right?
Yeah.
And it just wasn't understood back then by Cambria and IAMGOLD. When they started to develop Rosebel, it was still only, I was going through some Cambria and IAMGOLD annual reports. It was still at the time only about 1 million ounces. Right, but they saw the potential clearly, right? So it just took a lot of time to demonstrate those ounces.
I appreciate that very much, Mario. We're going to wind down as we have a quick break before our next session, but I want to thank you so much for the audience being able to tap into your insights and wisdom. It sounds like exciting potential, and I feel like we've had a good journey with you today. So thank you very much for joining us at the VID conference.
Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate it. And again, thank you to Laurentian for launching coverage. I think that's great, and it's a great start, starting to show the market that, this is a story in the making.